when we talked earlier, you were saying something about you were comparing two different people and the type of student you would prefer. Can you dive into that a little bit more so I don't put words
Sure.
into your mouth?
No, so the self-preserve and I really like the term self-preservation because we tend to apply imagined realities to the risks that we face. And so, going back to my probability versus severity, people will put a whole ton of planning and thought into their active shooter response. If I'm at the mall or if I'm at Walmart and a dude walks in with an AR-15, here's what all I'm going to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the reality is, for example, that you're much more likely to accidentally cut somebody off in traffic, have them follow you to Walmart or the gas station, pull in behind you and start screaming, and have a sublethal, potentially violent encounter. And so that's really what we need to be focused on solving. And again, gunplay may be part of that, but I would rather, that frankly, if you are a USPSA Grandmaster shooter who has a really hard time talking to people, isn't in very good shape, has no combative skills, and can't fight your way out of a wet paper bag, I would go so far as to say that you're poorly equipped to deal with realistic civilian self-defense scenarios. And I would rather have, as a self-preserver or self-defender, I think the person who shoots okay, pretty well, who also has put some time into, they've read verbal judo, they've read how to win friends and influence people, they actually practice verbal interactions with strangers and have some idea how to do that. They've taken managing unknown contacts from guys like Craig Douglas or Chuck Haggard, dudes that teach it. Who also, frankly, fitness is something that we overlook because, again, if we're trying to preserve our lives, I mean, it's just good to be as fit as you possibly can. And what I mean by that is not everybody has to be a triathlete or a CrossFitter or anything like that, but within the constraints of your age and any physical, disabilities or limitations you may have, it does pay to be as fit as you can. I've got heart disease in my family history where basically everybody in my family that dies of a natural death dies of a massive heart attack. And so it would really be terrible for me to ignore that risk to myself in terms of self-preservation. And then one day down the road when I'm very unfit, I win my gas pump gunfight with an attempted carjacker and then have a heart attack, while I'm waiting on the police to show up after the fact because the stress was too much for my heart. So looking at the aspects of physical fitness, empty-handed fighting skills, and having something is better than nothing. 5% is better than 0%. Some less than lethal capability, whatever it may be. I'm a big fan of OC and pepper spray. Verbal agility and the ability to talk to people and de-escalate and say, hey, you know what, man, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Here, let me pull this 20 out of my pocket and let me put some gas in your tank. That if that keeps me from getting into a situation where I've got to shoot somebody, I want to do that. And so thinking about all the other slices of the pie beyond gunplay is hugely important to self-preservation and preservation of your loved ones.
Yeah, and I think part of that managing risk is knowing your abilities, knowing your limitations, knowing your abilities. And there was a video that Adam did just a couple days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, and he talks about that, about knowing your abilities and testing them so that if you're ever in a situation, you'll be able to know those things. And it does talk about fitness a bit, but that's what it boils down to, is being honest about your restrictions, limitations, or abilities, wouldn't you say? That's what it's more about.
Oh, I mean, 100%, because the reality is that, yeah, testing your skills, and let's just keep it simple and stick to gunplay. Shooting 100 meter Charlie zone reduced size steel targets. If I'm stone cold and haven't shot in a couple of weeks, I'm an 80 to 90% shooter at 100 meters with a red dot on my full size gun. Okay. Now, what that means for me is if I'm standing in a Walmart and I look 100 yards down across Walmart to the jewelry counter, and some dudes are robbing the jewelry counter, but they're not shooting anybody. It's clear they're filling up bags with whatever Walmart jewelry has. I don't know. I know there's a 10 to 20% chance that if I decide to skin my smoke wagon and send a round down there towards them, that I might miss. And then if I miss, the chance that I might hit an innocent bystander. On the other hand, if it's the, God forbid, the El Paso active shooter in Walmart, where I look 100 yards down the aisle of Walmart or Home Depot, and I see a dude who's literally just boom, dead civilian, boom, dead civilian, boom, dead civilian, then in terms of the doctrine of competing harms, in other words, which is the less bad option here, if I do nothing, then people are going to continue to die. So maybe it's worth that 90% chance that I score a hit, or out of 2 rounds, an almost 100% chance that I score a hit. Maybe that's worth the risk. That being said, if you're a private citizen, and don't be wrong, you definitely need to be focused and proficient at closer, more typical ranges before you start worrying about shooting at 75, 100 yards.
Mhm.
But if you don't have any idea what percentage you can hit at 100 yards, you probably shouldn't take that shot.
Mhm.
And so knowing basically how you can perform on demand, cold, under stress, is super, super important. And that's true of whether it be fitness, combatives, because you may say, hey, look, this cop's fighting with a guy, I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to help this police officer because I want to help, and he's getting beat up. But if you're both out of shape and don't know anything about fighting, you may also put yourself and the officer in a worse situation by either making a mistake or tiring out, or suddenly he's got to worry about protecting you too. So knowing
Yeah.
your capabilities and knowing how much risk you can incur based on your ability level is a hugely important part of keeping yourself out of trouble, both legally and in terms of not putting yourself in a situation biting off more than you can chew.